All right, Talo Falava, you are in for a treat today. I am your host, Rob. Boy, it's nice to meet you. This is the behind the scenes. There you go, the behind the scenes stories of busy professionals. And this episode is actually brought to you by Get Ghosted. It's a LinkedIn ghostwriting and management service, profile management service. Oftentimes, coaches, consultants, speakers are usually on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, but sometimes LinkedIn gets neglected a little bit. You're a little ghost town. It's either because it's not too exciting for people or they're just not aware of what to post or maybe don't even have time. But Get Ghosted will help you manage all of that so you can build trust in record time without writing a single word. So if you're interested, go to thedigitalwritingfirm.com, thedigitalwritingfirm.com. Today is a special guest because growing up in American Samoa, I don't know if I knew anyone who suffered from ADHD. Cindy Baker is an expert at coaching professionals, but also addressing the ADHD issue. She's got over 19 years in the education space. She's, like I said, she's a coach. So I'm very curious and interested in this because once I came to the States, I noticed a bunch of my friends have ADHD and they're geniuses, but then they also have some unique struggles too. So I'm very curious to learn from Cindy. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, to start us, I like to ask this one question, and this will get the engines rolling. In the last 12 months of your life, if you were to turn that into a Netflix special, what would that movie be, and what would you call it?
Oh man, yeah, start with a tough one, huh? The past 12 months have been interesting. I think the theme has been change. So maybe that would be the title. But I retired as a teacher in May, and that was big. We lost my mom in June, and that was hard. So that was another big change. I turned 60. That was a big milestone. And I won a speaking contest, and I'm now branching out into speaking. So there were a lot of big things that happened. And I think the biggest is just being able to work in my business full time. If I was teaching school, you and I wouldn't be talking in the middle of the day. So yeah, so I don't know if that really answers your question, but
No, that's good. Yeah, change would be the title of the movie, and there's a lot of story arcs in there from the highs and the lows. So that's pretty interesting. Which then leads me to the teaching. So you retired from teaching, a longtime teacher. Did you always want to be a teacher? How did that get started?
Yeah, so actually, I started out in youth ministry. And so I always worked with kids. I worked for an organization called Young Life.
Yeah. Oh,
which
yeah.
is an interdenominational worldwide youth organization. And I just had always been interested in teaching, but I don't know that I would say I always wanted to be a teacher, but I have always been in a helping profession, even now. I did teach ESL for a while, which I thought would be interesting to you. I lived in Germany for 4 years and worked with Young Life over there. They have a program where civilians come and run the youth program on an army base with U.S. kids whose parents were stationed in the army in Germany. So that was interesting. I did all that before I was married. And when I came back, I already had a master's in counseling. And so I just took the certification that I needed to become a school counselor. So that's how I got into it. And then I got into a grant program that allowed me to be certified to teach ESL, English as a second language. And so that got me into teaching because I had to do the student teaching. And so just one thing led to another. And when I was ready for a change, I just decided to start my own business. I'd always been entrepreneurial. Even when I was a kid, I had a little business, I guess you could call it, where I painted barrettes, hair barrettes, and would put them on a ribbon, like to display them with little number next to each style or whatever, or design. And then I would leave them at beauty shops, hairdresser places, and people would take orders, give the lady the money, and then my dad would drive me around. I would go pick them up, and then I would paint those barrettes and then bring them back. So I've always had that desire to kind of do my own thing, which is interesting because you mentioned ADHD. I read somewhere that over 60% of entrepreneurs have ADHD. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not, but it does fit.
And how did you end up working with people with ADHD, or even that topic? How did that come about?
Yeah, I worked with a lot of students who had ADHD as a school counselor, and I started thinking, I think I have this. I really can relate to these symptoms. I was impulsive. I was late all the time and rushed and forgot things, was unorganized, I had unfinished projects, all the things. And I got diagnosed as an adult with ADHD myself. And then I just became so curious. I wanted to learn everything I could about adult ADHD because it does manifest differently in adults. And especially in women, it's a little different. When I was growing up, nobody really talked about it except in reference to boys. And then they were just hyper poorly behaved boys. And that was it. And so I just read books, went to workshops, learned everything I could, and started trying different things to see what worked and what didn't. And because a lot of strategies for time management and things like that don't work for the way an ADHD brain is wired. And so I learned what we would call ADHD friendly tips and strategies, put together a framework, built some habits, and really became successful. I went from chaos, really, I guess is the only word I could think of, where I changed jobs all the time and I had no stability and was just all over the place, to earning 2 master degrees, having a long-term career, almost 20 years as a educator, married the love of my life, my grandma, and I started and I'm running a successful business, all while having ADHD. And people started to ask me how I did it, started to help other people. And that's when, I was all at that time starting to think, I want to do something different. I want to be my own boss. I want to have a more flexible schedule. And so it all just came together. I thought, well, I can help other people with ADHD. Having my, as they say, my mess become my message. There's really no need for anybody else to have to take years to figure it out like I did, because I can help them much faster.
Yeah. Can you talk about the time management thing? Because that's the first time that I've heard. That's pretty fascinating, where normal time management won't work for someone that has. That's a pretty interesting paradigm.
Yeah, that's something we work on in my coaching program a lot. People with ADHD have a different awareness of time than other people. They live in 2 time periods, now and not now. And that's it. If your boss says you got a project due in 2 months, your brain says, oh, that's not now. I don't have to think about it now. Instead of thinking, okay, I need to plan for the next 2 months to do a little along the way. Instead, it's just gone. We don't think about it. And then right before oh my gosh, I got this deadline. When you kick it into high gear and go crazy at the last minute. And so they call it time blindness, where, a person with ADHD they don't really see the passage of time like minutes and hours. It's just like this long stretch going into eternity. And so really all they're thinking about is what's in their immediate vicinity. And so they can put something, even if something's a priority, even if they wrote it on a planner, if there's something else that grabs their attention, like an interruption or a phone notification, their brain reacts and they don't finish the task. So there's a lot of things that we have to do to work with that. And my big philosophy is I don't think ADHD is necessarily a bad thing. There are a lot of people who complain about it, whine about, blame all of their problems on it. But there are tons of super successful people who actually feel like that creativity and that out of the box thinking, that problem solving is the flip side of ADHD for them. And what we do in my program is, we work on managing challenges, but we also really try to leverage strengths. For instance, talking about time management, there's a thing called hyperfocus, where you can just, if there's something you're engaged in, you're interested in, you can just hone in on it and tune out everything else. And if you can figure out how to direct that in the right way, that can that could really be an asset to a job, or if you have your own business. So it's not really so much about managing time, it's about managing focus. I don't like that term, attention deficit disorder, because we don't have a lack of attention. We just pay attention to too many things at one time. So it's a matter of directing your focus on the right things. So when I work with entrepreneurs, we work on prioritizing a lot. You want to, if you're a business owner, you want to make money, right? I'm going to help people, but make money. If you're wasting all your time doing things that are not revenue producing, you're not going to be successful. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Because focus is the area of attention that needs to be looked at. Would you say 3 things to focus on is too much? Usually, okay, I have a hit list of 10 things and let me do the top 3. Is 3 too much, or should it just be 1 thing per day?
Yeah, no, I actually do tell people to write down their top 3 priorities for the day. So that doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily complete. If one is this giant project, that might just be something that you work on that day, but you're not necessarily going to complete it. But instead of working off this giant to-do list with 50 things on it, you take your top 3 non-negotiables and you write those down, and that gets attention first. When those are done, then you can start picking away at the other things. But one of the things that I teach people is just to work in sprints. It goes with our natural energy cycles. And so you can set a timer, and anywhere from 20 to 90 minutes, depending on your attention span, and eliminate all the distractions and then just focus. If I have a timer set for 30 minutes, then I can focus thinking I only have to do this for 30 minutes, and then I get to take a break. And it keeps me from getting up and doing something that's off task or being distracted. I tell my clients, just put the phone in the other room, because the phone is a big distraction. And so that works. Just knowing that you're going to get that break keeps you focused in that little sprint. So that's one way to do it.
That's good. That's good. And you mentioned that adults can develop this thing later, or is it diagnosed later?
No, what I've learned and read, I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on TV, is that the symptoms have to be present from childhood. When you go in to get a diagnosis, there'll be a questionnaire, and a lot of those questions are, looking back, did you have a lot of energy or whatever? And so I could look back now, and it's interesting because now that I know that I have it, I look back and I'm like, oh, that's why I did that. That's why. And it makes sense now. And in some ways it's encouraging because there's a label for it. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with me. And learning how to work with the way your brain is wired instead of fighting against it, trying to be somebody that you're not, that's actually freeing.
And I think you'll appreciate this because you've been in ministry, but community is big. So in Samoa, a village raises, right, that saying, right? Are there a lot of different communities for parents who have ADHD out there? And I know you have a community where people can go to.
Yeah. Since my focus is adults, I have a Facebook group, but it's mostly for adults getting help for themselves.
Okay.
But many of them are parents. And a lot of times ADHD is hereditary.
Interesting.
There's a lady in my program now, and she's getting help for herself, but the things that she's learning, she's working with her teenage daughter and helping her. And so she's able to learn and grow herself, and then her daughter sees that, and then she can help her daughter. But yeah, there are lots of groups. The only thing is I'm in some other supposed support groups, and they don't feel very supportive. So you have to be careful. First of all, the person in charge needs to know what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And then it needs to be a place that's positive. We have a little saying in my coaching program called the 3P power, which is positive, prepared, productive. And the positive is big. I believe we were all created on purpose, for purpose. And there's some reason that your brain is wired the way it is. And there's some thing that you have to add to the world and help people with that you couldn't do if you didn't think the way you did. So you have to learn to work with it and go ahead and accept it and learn all you can about it. For instance, if you know that you procrastinate on things that you think are boring, then schedule those first thing. Know that about yourself, schedule them first thing, get them out of the way. And instead of waiting until the end of the day when you're tired and hungry and you don't want to do it anyway. So there's some things like that where if you know how you operate, you can schedule better.
Yeah, procrastination is a huge issue. How do you recommend people to tackle it, like when they have that sense like, I don't want to do it, or they just brush it off? Is there
Yeah.
some?
And I'll answer that question. But by the way, I do have a free course that I'll offer your listeners that'll help them beat procrastination. So they can just go to waitnomore.net and get that. And I'll let you put that in the show notes. But
And where can they find the Facebook group, your community?
yeah, the Facebook group is called Productivity for Profits. And there's a subtitle, but it's got a blue and yellow banner and it's called Productivity for Profits.
Okay, good.
Yeah. But it's back to procrastination. You mentioned people when you don't feel like doing something.
Yeah.
I always say waiting for motivation is never a good strategy. Motivation, you don't have to have a motivation to take action. You take the action first and then the motivation comes. And that is a total paradigm shift for so many people because they want to feel like doing something, but we can't operate on our feelings or we'll never get anything done. So sometimes you just have to break it down into the tiniest little steps. What's the smallest step I can take towards this where I'm guaranteed success? Because sometimes we procrastinate because we feel overwhelmed. It just feels too big. But if you can break it down, let's say right now I'm writing a book and that's a big project. So let's say I just didn't feel like working on my book, but I can say, okay, what's the first step? The first step is I need to walk over to my desk and sit down in front of the computer. I can do that. So I go and I sit down. Sometimes you have to break it down that small. I can turn on the computer. Okay, turn it on, wake it up. I can pull up the document. I can find the last sentence that I wrote. I can write the next sentence. I can write the sentence after that. And then you use baby steps, talking yourself into it. And before you know it, you're in the flow, you're working, and you feel motivated. But people think that they have to feel good all the time. And you have to learn how to be uncomfortable for a little bit. You have to do that little push because getting started is the hardest part a lot of times. But once you get over that hump, it's like if you were trying to push a rock up a mountain, right when you get almost to the top, that's when it's the heaviest. But if you can just go ahead and live with that discomfort for a while and just live with it and push it a little bit more before it's rolling down the other side. And then all that effort, it feels easy. But that's something that people have to practice and they have to learn. And the more you do it, the more you remember, last time this was successful. Last time I didn't feel like doing this, but this is how I did it. So I can do that with this project too. And you just learn. You learn to live with the discomfort for a little bit, knowing in your mind, this isn't going to last. I'll feel more like doing this later. But what we do when we procrastinate, we're really just giving away our dreams. We're just not creating the life and the future that we want because we're wasting time. And time it's not like a overdraft in your bank. You can't write a check. It's like writing a check and thinking that you still have plenty of money because the check hasn't been cashed. You don't have that money. You know what I mean? So when you put off things, that time is gone. You're not going to get it back.
Man,
I could go on and on. I get on a soapbox with that.
This is so good. Procrastination is like throwing away your dreams. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty powerful. Last question I have is, you mentioned the small baby steps. Are those micro steps the same in the success blueprint for ADHD people? Will they benefit from taking those small steps?
Yes.
Small actions?
Yeah. Anytime you have a big project that feels overwhelming, I always tell people break it into small, achievable little micro steps, but don't just stop there. Go ahead and schedule when you're going to do those things.
Mm.
Let's go back to writing the book. So let's say I was going to write the outline or something like that. I'm going to do that by this date. And you schedule out all the little parts. And then when you finish it, reward yourself. Have a little celebration. Do something. When I get this done, I'm going to get to go eat my favorite snack or go watch puppy videos on Facebook Reels or whatever. Something that you want to do. Reward yourself.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's good. So where can people find you? A website, your socials?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. It's CBC _ Baker Coaching. Website is cindybakercoaching.com. Again, if they want the free gift, they can go to waitnomore.net. And if they want to email me, it's cindy@cindybakercoaching.com.
Good. And then for the Facebook group, just make sure to type in the title of the group. And then
Yeah, it's really, I can give you the link and they can just click that.
Okay,
And we'll
perfect.
have to look for it.
Yeah, easy peasy, easy peasy.
That's right.
Well, great. Thank you, Cindy.
You're welcome.
For all the information. I think there are some really good bars there, some T-shirt slogans that you got on us today. So I appreciate that. And then for the audience, we're grateful, and make sure to visit Cindy at all these different links. And if you have ADHD or you're a parent that might have a child, definitely join the community and look her up and give her a shout. Cool. All right. Appreciate it, everybody. Thank you.